The bye-week break is over, and the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets are set to get back in action on Saturday. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Swarm Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Florjancic, and for the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking all things Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jacket football. We'll catch up with special teams standout Marco Stilliana, one of the star running backs for the Yellow Jackets, George Linberger, and head coach Jim Hilvert. We'll also take a look at the week ahead for all of the Yellow Jackets sports teams. Right now, it's time for our first interview of the day, and it's Marco Stilliana.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Swarm, a BW football podcast. I'm Matt Florjancic, now joined by senior defensive back and special teams ace, Marco Stilliana. Marco, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us here on the Swarm.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Marco, taking a look at what you've been able to accomplish, we'll start with this year. You're 3-1 coming off the bye. First of all, how was the bye week, and how is the team's health? Are you in a good spot both physically and mentally?
Yeah, bye week was good. I think we needed it as a team. It was kind of, we talked about a little bit how that was sort of our preseason, those first 4 games. Now we come back from our bye week all healthy, rested up for these next 6 games for the long haul to try to make a push for the playoffs.
The big joke is there's no bad time for a bye week. Do you concur with that assessment that this was the right time?
I do, yeah. I think it is the football joke that goes along with it. Every team obviously has their own bye week and no niche when that happens, and you always try to look at the positives with it, even if it's at week 2, week 8. You always kind of work around your season with that and then build off of it.
Yeah, it's nice. For the longest time, BW would get that week 2 bye, so then they'd have to run 9 straight. It's a little bit more chopped up. Does that make the schedule a little easier to digest from a player's perspective?
I think it does for sure, because you almost hit a reset button after about 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it may be, and you reassess a little bit. You see what's been going good, what hasn't been going good, keep what's doing great, get better at the things we need to work on, and kind of go from there.
So, Marco, you play defensive back, but you also assist on special teams. What is your role on special teams?
Yeah, so on special teams, I play on kickoff and punt block. So kickoff, I'm more of the safety player. I kind of break in case of emergency kind of guy. And punt block, I rush off the edge, try to create a play, maybe a bad snap that happens. I can be there to pick it up. Or if there's just a situation that revolves around me.
Have you always been a special teams player, or was that something that you focused a little bit more on once you got to BW?
Yeah, so I came in as a safety, as I said before, and a little bit for me, kind of the avenue on how I was going to see the field and the best opportunities for me came at special teams, and I fully embraced it, and I love it, and now it's sort of like my own little niche, and I love doing it and being a part of it.
From all the time I've spent around football in my career, both at the high school level, college level, and then dealing with professional athletes for a long time, special teams guys seem to have a different kind of mindset. What's your mindset when you step onto a football field?
Yeah, sure. So my mindset would, a lot of it is do my job, right? Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to make a big play. Sort of do my job. And I think if all the special teams players, which we do, I believe, a very good job of doing that because of Coach Nickel. He does a great job of getting us in the right mindset of sort of accepting your role, knowing your role, and doing the best you possibly can at your role.
Let's talk a little bit about the BW special teams, because obviously the defense gets the credit for what they do, especially with their pass rush. The offense gets the credit for what they do moving the ball down the field. But special teams-wise, you kind of fly under the radar because people only really notice you when something goes horribly wrong or fantastically well. Let's talk a little bit about what this special teams unit is made of at BW. What, from your perspective, makes this a special unit of guys?
Yeah, so we are definitely a tight-knit group when it comes to the special teamers and everyone that's involved with it, whatever, maybe it's kickoff return, kickoff, punt block, punt, whatever it may be. We're a very tight group, and we've all sort of taken this on as it matters to us. It just matters more to our team. It's a very vital part of football. It's, offense, defense, it's a third part. It doesn't get a whole lot of credit, as you said. It sort of flies under the radar. And I think that we do a great job of really honing in on it. We care about it. It matters for us.
And taking a look at the success that you've had as a unit, I mean, you look at Joseph Evans and punting the football and splitting the uprights on extra points and field goals. I mean, you're a part of that. Even though you don't necessarily get the credit, he gets the credit in the stat sheet for both those long punts that he's able to pin back opponents on, and then the points that he's able to put up on the board. But how much pride do you take in watching the special teams succeed when even though you know you're not going to get the credit for it.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, special teamers, they're guys that there's no stat for it, right? They do everything else but show up on numbers. And I think when Joe's successful, we're successful. Joe's successes are our successes. Just as Joe, if he were to screw up, we also screw up. So we're all sort of like a one for all as a team, as a unit, and we just love being a part of it.
Do you say that it's really, when you're on the special teams, that you're playing really for the love of the game because you're out there and you don't get to highlight real plays and whatnot? It's really just your passion coming out, and you know that you get a limited amount of plays that you can impact the game positively for yourself and negatively for an opponent?
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly how we look at it. We just look at it as we're going to try to do whatever we can to help our team succeed. We're willing to do it, and I think that's what makes this group so special.
This year, BW has started the season 3-1. You're coming off of your first loss of the year, and then the bye week break. You get Otterbein coming up on Saturday. How much are you looking forward to getting back out there after the 2-week break in between games, and how much are you looking forward to getting back in the win column?
Yeah, so obviously, the Mount Union game didn't go in the direction we wanted it to, and I think the bye week we took a step back in terms of reassessing and relooking at some things. And we're just excited to get back out there. We're a bunch of guys that just love football. We love being around each other. And I think for us, as I said before, when someone on our team is successful, we're all successful.
What were some of those things that you were trying to hone in on during the bye week break to maybe sharpen up a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of it was fundamentals, just sort of things we kind of got away from during camp. So during camp, we sort of hone in more on technique and whatever it may be, fundamentals and playbook stuff. And that bye week really helped us get back into it a little bit, kind of look at some of our fundamentals, our technique that we need to critique and fix.
Individually, what was something that you really tried to hone in on?
Yeah, so for me personally, on kickoff, I've been having a little bit of trouble with finding my read in terms of the leverage I'm supposed to take, so whether it be inside or outside leverage. And this past week on the bye week, I was able to kind of slow things down a little bit, kind of take things as a step-by-step, just reevaluate how I approach it and get my mindset back right.
This might be a little bit off the wall of a question, but I'll ask it anyway. The college game hasn't adapted to the new kickoff rules that we see on Sundays yet. Do you like the way the colleges keep the kickoffs, or would you rather see it change?
I personally like it. I think it still keeps the game. The NFL is just personally, I just think is personal opinion. I'm not a huge fan of how they do the new kickoff. I think the college kickoff, it still keeps, because I don't think enough kickers are able, especially in Division III, enough kickers are able to pound it in the end zone all the time. So it still keeps a lot of football play going, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. You're a Northeast Ohio kid. You grew up in the Youngstown area, went to Boardman High School. Football's kind of, in your DNA in that part of the country. I mean, what was it about the game that first attracted you and now has led you to this point where you're a college athlete?
Yeah, a lot of it was just, I grew up I'm not very tall, I don't weigh a whole lot, I'm a small kid, I'm not the fastest, not the strongest. A lot of it is football brings out toughness in you. And I feel like for me personally, I've always had a chip on my shoulder and kind of that underdog mentality, and football is the definition of that. And for me personally, a lot of it is just that underdog mentality and just being gritty and being tough and trying to do things the right way and being a team player.
And really, coming from the area of Northeast Ohio that you did in Boardman, I mean, you're going to get those lessons day in and day out. That's a historically good program out there that's produced a lot of talent that has gone on to play at all levels of the game. I mean, that's really where you're in a community and you've got an opportunity to really shine because you have that support.
Yeah, for sure. The community in Youngstown, Ohio is the best. It's I call it Football Town USA, personally. Me and all my friends and our rivals. The rivalries are just so special down there. It's with such rich tradition.
Well, so growing up in Youngstown, obviously you're a little bit of ways away from home when you come to BW. What brought you here?
Yeah, Coach Hilvert. He's the one that sold me over on this program. A lot of it was very Youngstown principles and sort of what I grew up with and the coaching style and how he sort of approaches the game, and I fell in love with the program overnight.
And we'll get you out of here on this question. You got 4 games in the books, you've got 6 more regular season, and then hopefully a few more after that as well. What can this team still accomplish, in your opinion, this year? How special can this season still be?
Yeah, this season could be one of the most special that Baldwin Wallace has had in a very long time in the football category. We're a tight-knit group. our team bonding is I believe at an all-time high, even after taking a loss a week and a half ago. For us, it's just going to be about controlling what we can control. Our attitude and our effort, and kind of taking things on a day-by-day basis. If we try to look ahead, or if we try to even dwell on the past a little bit, things aren't going to go in our right direction. But I think if we hone in on taking things day by day and understanding our strengths, our weaknesses, and how we can complement each other, I think we're going to be a great team.
Well, Marco, thank you very much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. It was fun to catch up with you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's Marco Stilliana, special teams ace and defensive back for the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets. We'll be back on the Swarm Podcast with more after this.
Our thanks go out to Marco for his time earlier this week. And now let's catch up with one of the star running backs for the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets, sophomore George Linberger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Swarm Podcast. Matt Florjancic, joined by a star running back for the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets, George Linberger, the sophomore rusher for the Yellow Jackets. And George, thank you very much for joining us here on the podcast. It's nice to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. Excited to talk.
So George comes in after transferring to the program before the 2023 season, so he's in year 2 with the Yellow Jackets. You transfer from Youngstown State. What brought you to BW?
Just felt like I want to be a little bit closer to home, feel a little bit more of like a home atmosphere, and then just coming out of the portal, felt like the coaches were very upfront with me and felt like I could really create a connection with them. So.
Did you look at other schools, and if so, what stood out most about BW? Why did you want to be a Yellow Jacket?
Academics definitely played a part into my new school. I thought the academics were very well, and then just being able to create a relationship with the coaches, and that was the biggest thing. I felt like I could really connect with these guys here. So
academics played a huge part in your success at Youngstown State. You were a Dean's List student, academic, all Missouri Valley conference selection. You come here and you earn athletic and academic honors. I mean, what's your field of study, and what are you hoping to do once you get done with being a Yellow Jacket?
So I'm a chemistry major currently, and my goal is to eventually go to med school and become an anesthesiologist.
Okay. So, what is it about that field that has your interest?
So in high school I had a couple injuries, and during the surgeries and then the talking up of them, I thought the anesthesia part was very interesting and kind of the job of what they do. So
you're healthy now, though, right?
Yep.
You're good to go?
Yeah,
all right,
for sure.
Cool. Well, you look great on game days in terms of being healthy. You're a little bit of a change of pace back. You're more of an old school guy. You like to run between the tackles, but you're deceptive in the fact that you can bounce it outside. And once you get into space, you can wreak some havoc down the field as well. I mean, how would you describe your rushing style?
Power with a little bit of pace, I'd say.
And what type of mindset does it take to be that in between the tackles runner? Because you're going to get hit. Mm-hmm. You're going to get hit quickly, if not in the backfield, right at the line of scrimmage, and you're going to have to power forward, which is something that you excel at.
For me, it's just ever since I've been little, just keep your legs moving. My first thing is always deliver the contact, don't take it. I feel like if you're able to deliver it, you're able to be able to give more out, be able to dish it rather than take it. So definitely keeps you along throughout the game.
Do you, obviously dishing it rather than taking it is the mission, but do you kind of embrace the opportunity? You're like, yeah, I know I'm going to get hit, but I'm going to hit you just as hard, if not harder?
Most definitely. That's my favorite part about football, is just being able to be physical and just go at guys. So
with that, it's an exciting style of play. People like to see hits. Mm-hmm. People like to see running backs deliver hits when it's their own running back, obviously. But it comes with a lot of wear and tear on the body. How are you able to maintain and stay healthy?
Going to rehab 2-3 times a week, getting treatment whenever I can, really just focusing on recovery every day that I can. So.
What's your typical practice week like? Do you take a lot of contact during the week too, or you save it mostly for game days?
It's pretty light in practice. We're really just a thud team during the week. Very little, almost no taking to the ground. So that's really nice in recovery aspect as well. So I'm just focusing on staying healthy for Saturdays.
I've joked about this in calling some of the games on webcast, but now that I get to sit and I get to talk to you about it, it's less of a joke. But how sore are you on Monday morning? I know you play Saturday, but usually it's like 2 days after where you feel it the worst. Mm. What's your Monday morning like?
It's a little rough, for sure. Waking up, definitely got to stretch a little bit more than usual. So, but that's what I love. So, have a big passion for it.
The running back room here at Baldwin Wallace is a little bit of a mix of everything. You don't just have one kind of runner. You have multiple types. You're the power, but you have speed as well. You've got guys like Tyrone Singleton, Victor Ford Jr. that have the athleticism and some power behind their athleticism too. This really seems like a close-knit room that respects what everybody can do, and you're not the type of team that needs to have a guy that gets 20 carries. Now, if it happens, great, but you're always seeming to cheer for each other and pick each other up. From your perspective, what is that like, and how does that help when you have that kind of camaraderie?
It's just great morale. Like, if you're not having the best game, somebody else is going to be right there to help you. It's not all on you. You get you get some help, but you can also be the main guy at times too. So definitely just good to have good camaraderie.
From your perspective, does it help having multiple guys that can do different things where you can specialize in what you do well, and then you have somebody that can spell you and do something completely different to throw the defense off guard?
Yes, it's definitely. I feel like it's very tough for defenses to scheme against our team in the run game, because you have Tyrone who can go outside, get guys to miss, and then you have me that's able to go up the middle. Vic can do a little bit of both, so it's definitely tough for defenses to pick what they want to do against us.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your offensive line. Obviously, those guys set the tone for you up front. What's your relationship like with those guys up front, and how grateful are you for the holes that they give you to run through?
Love those guys. Those are the guys I hang out with the most on the team, actually. Every Friday, I go to dinner with a couple of those guys, so we're definitely very close-knit.
Have you ever had to pick up the tab?
Yeah, for sure.
That's can be a little disconcerting when you see some of those guys, isn't
Definitely,
it?
Yeah, definitely. You got to look at the total. It's a little questionable, but you got to do it sometimes. So
yeah, absolutely. You got to take care of the people that take care of you. And looking at what this season has been like, you're 3-1 going into the bye week. Now you're coming out of the bye week. You get Otterbein at home, so it's a nice little 2-game home stretch before you go on the road. Where is the mindset of this team being 3-1 off the bye, going into the Otterbein game, a little bit fresher than you would have if there was no bye week?
I feel like this bye week came at pretty much the best time it could. Coming off a tough loss, definitely not the best football we think we could have played. A little bit of poor fundamentals, so that's what we really worked on this past week in the bye week, and really looking for a bounce-back week this weekend's Otterbein. And then going into the rest of the season, I really think we can make some big changes in the OAC. So,
taking a look at what you've seen from Otterbein, it's still early in the week, so you haven't had much time to look at film, but what have you seen from that defense, and how are you going to be able to counteract what they do well?
They have very good corners. One of their corners is probably the best in the OAC, comparably to a lot of those other guys. And kind of stack the box at times. So just looking for ways to kind of spread them out and then be able to run up the middle, get some outside zone as well. So
you're one of the returning, not necessarily starters, but lettermen for the Yellow Jacket offense this year, and you have a lot of experience around the quarterback position, but you're helping break in a newer guy in Charlie Bubonics, who's come along very well. He's had multi-touchdown games in 3 of his 4 starts this year. Taking a look at what Charlie has been able to do, how impressed are you with what he's been able to do in the pass game, and how does that success help you as a running back?
Success-wise, I think it's huge for us because he's also able to spread out the defense, which is great. I feel like last year we had a lot of stacked boxes towards the end of the season, so being able to spread those guys out, get different types of plays going, and I would say I'm impressed, but I'm also not impressed because I saw what he could do last year, and I knew he could be our guy from day one. He looked very, very good last camp. Spring ball, you could just tell he really wanted it. So, but I think he's coming along really good for us. And
that relationship with you is pretty critical in terms of being able to have those clean exchanges and know which way he's turning, where he's going to put the ball on you, putting a pocket there for him to get the ball into. What's that? How has that developed as the season has gone on?
It's been really good. We do mesh every single day, so we're working on those handoffs all the time, talking throughout practice, what he's looking for, what he wants me to do. So it's definitely good communication.
Well, George, thank you very much for taking the time and talking with me today. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing what the rest of the year and what your rest of your career holds for you here at Baldwin Wallace.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
That's George Linberger, star running back for the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets. We'll be back with more on the Swarm podcast right after this.
Thanks again go out to George Linberger for joining us on today's episode of the show. And we're going to wrap up the interview portions with the head coach himself, the eighth-year man for the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets, head coach Jim Hilvert.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Swarm, a BW football podcast. Matt Florjancic now joined by the head coach of the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets, Coach Jim Hilvert. Coach, as always, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Matt, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Coach, you're coming off of the bye week previously, and you get a chance to reset some things. What was the bye week break like for you?
As a matter of fact, it was really good. It was really good to recharge the batteries. Obviously, from a player and coach's standpoint, kind of go back to basics. Obviously, kudos for Mount Union. They played really well. We did not play well as a team, and we did not play complementary football. Everything that we could do wrong went wrong. But I think we learned. It was a good learning experience, a good thing for us to kind of reset the battery and obviously know the things that we need to get better at. And I think that's going into this game. Playing at home, I think it's another good thing, and getting ready to play.
The thing that I noticed about, and we won't rehash the Mount Union game too much, but the thing that I noticed is that you may have started in a hole because you had some issues going on, but as the game went on, it seemed like your defense got better. The offense was able to make some plays. You showed some signs of improvement, and had it not been for the slower start, you'd have been in there.
We did settle in a little bit. We did just some uncharacteristic, a lot of mental mistakes, and it kind of led to obviously some physical mistakes. And I think if we get all those corrected, we're going to be the football team that we want to be. And obviously, it's time for us to get the bad taste out of our mouth. Mm-hmm. They're having obviously 2 weeks to be able to obviously harp on the fundamentals and worry about us, the things that we need to get better at offensively, defensively, and special teams. And Otterbein played a great game against Mount Union this past week. We know we have our work cut out for us, but I think we're excited about the opportunity to get back to playing games again.
Yeah, the old adage in football is there's no such thing as a bad time for the bye week. I mean, is that the case again?
I think our bye week's the perfect spot for us, that fourth or fifth week going into the season for our guys, get healthy, completely healthy and all that stuff. And we have 6 games left. Seniors are like, wow, season's flying by. They have 6 games left. And obviously this one's going to be our third home game.
Yeah, so taking a look at what you've got coming up ahead, you get the Otterbein Cardinals at home. It's nice to be back at home. Like you said, try to get that bad taste out of your mouth. I mean, you've seen it in practice early this week. I mean, are guys chomping at the bit to get back on game?
Yeah, I think it was good for those guys to get away for a little bit this past weekend. You could tell today getting back into the flow of things, which was great to see. And going back to our normal routine Tuesday and Wednesday and then Thursday practice where they'll walk through and stuff like having a game at home. Getting into that routine again because the days go by so fast, the weeks go by so fast, and Saturday's here before you know it. It's supposed to be a beautiful week, football weather. You can tell fall is here, which is exciting. Halloween's right around the corner. So I'm really excited about watching our guys play again this Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Taking a look at what you've seen from Otterbein, I know it's still early, so you got plenty of time to still do some more research on them. But what have you seen out of them specific to that Mount Union game that you just referenced?
Oh, their coaches and stuff did They had a great game plan in place. They played really hard this past weekend. Their quarterback is a runner. He runs hard. He ran the ball 23 times. He threw the ball 36 times. So they have some playmakers. Number 5, one of their tight ends, with number 18, their tall, long receiver, and number 80 and 2 complement each other. And 23, the running back, runs hard. And the guys up front, they do a good job. And defensively, they got some playmakers. It starts with Vincent Fish with their cornerback. And up front, they have a really good defensive end. And those guys kind of lead the way for them on the front end and the back end. So our guys know we have to play well.
Yeah.
Playing in front of our home crowd again, and being able to get back into winning ways and to be able to get our 4th victory.
Taking a look at what you've been able to accomplish on offense, a guy that maybe flies under the radar sometimes because of the other skill position players you have, but running back George Linberger, I mean, I had a chance to talk to George as well earlier this weekend. what does he really bring to this team?
First of all, George is a great young man. That's the first thing you got to say about George. Loves a great game of football. He's very intense in games that football means something to him. He's a hard runner. He's a guy that wears on you. You might not see it the first quarter, but you're going to see it in the third and then going into the fourth quarter. Runs extremely hard, really good between the tackles, also has good hands, but a guy that I think leads by his actions. He really, I love watching him run the football and imposing his will on defenses.
One of the best things about him, like you said, he runs between the tackles, but he's deceptive. We talked about Tim Conwell being deceptive and not looking like a prototypical guy who would be a long snapper and or a wide receiver. George looks like a prototype that will run between the tackles, but then if he gets into space, he can win a foot race with people.
Oh, yeah.
He's deceptively fast, and that's another dimension to his game that maybe he doesn't get credit for.
Yeah, like I said, he's deceptively, like quick with his feet. I think they really work well in that, I call it that telephone booth. But he imposes the will on people. Like, he takes the heart of the defense away. Because by that third and fourth quarter, they don't want to tackle him anymore. And he loosens it up for everybody else. And I think that's why he's a good compliment to Vic, to Tyrone, and everybody else, because he does that. He wears on your offense line, wearing on you, and guys don't want to tackle him in the fourth quarter. He's one of those guys, like Larry Zonka type guy, Mike Allstott type guy, where he's just that bam, bang your wham, just going to keep going to go at you. So
yeah, soul crushing. He's just going to take it away from you because you do not want to talk to that to tackle that guy. And I actually talked about that in some of the game webcasts and then with George as well. I said, I love watching you run only because I don't have to stand in front of you. But I imagine that's a lot different view for a linebacker.
Right. And it's so funny because my one son now is playing running back, and he mentioned George's name. He goes, I kind of like running like George. I said, yeah, you're like that. But George giving a compliment because he runs physical. George is a physical runner, and it's really neat to watch him obviously run.
Yeah, and then we talked to Marco as well, and he's one of your special teams standouts. I mean, getting a guy, you talk about guys that love football. I think from a special team standpoint, you really have to love the game because you don't necessarily get the credit that other people do. And Marco seems to be in line with that hook, line, and sinker. He's a guy that loves the game. You can see his eyes light up when he's talking about football.
I love Marco. He's part of the glue of this football team because he does all the little things. He cares great deal about this program, cares a great deal about his teammates, and will do anything to help our program win games. And like you said, if it's cheering on the sidelines, playing on kickoff, whatever it is, it does not matter to him. He'll do whatever he can to help the team. He loves a great game of football. He loves being around his teammates. He exemplifies what a BW Yellow Jacket is all about. It's a privilege to coach the young man. I can't believe he's a senior. Goes by so fast. And I know he's going to be successful in whatever he decides to do after this year when he graduates.
In talking to both George and Marco, their paths were a little different. George came in as a freshman, or George came in as a transfer, I should say, and Marco came in as a freshman. But the thing that stands out both of them, in talking to both of them, is they really just embraced the culture here. And that's got to be a good thing for you to see and hear every day because your message is not only getting through to get them on campus, but then once they're here, they're helping spread that message to the next generation of Yellow Jackets and really passing down the importance of being committed every day to making this place as good as it can be.
No doubt. Like I said, they're hard workers. They lead by example. They care so much about, like I said, their teammates, and it's not, they're selfless. It's not about them. It's about the guy next to them, about the guy behind them, and they embrace all that. They're tough kids, mentally and physically, which I have a great appreciation for, and they do not care who gets the credit as long as we win games, which is neat to be around.
Yep. Well, Coach, thank you as always for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to being in the booth to call your game against Otterbein on Saturday, and hopefully it'll be another Yellow Jacket win.
Matt, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to Saturday.
That's head coach Jim Hilvert, the head coach of the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets. We'll be right back on the Swarm Football Podcast.
Thanks again go out to Coach Hilvert for taking the time earlier this week to talk Yellow Jacket football with us right here on the Swarm Podcast. That does it for the interview portion of the show. Now we're going to take a look at the week ahead for the Yellow Jackets, and the women's volleyball team will get the weekend action started on Friday when they take on Swarthmore in the Hope College October tournament up in Holland, Michigan. Then on Saturday, it's a full slate of athletics as the men's golf team plays at the Panther Invitational in Battle Creek, Michigan. The women's volleyball team will be back on the court at 11 a.m. on Saturday to play Milliken in second round action of the Hope College October tournament. Then the women's soccer team will be in action at Otterbein at 1 p.m., while the women's tennis team will host Penn State Barron at 1 p.m. as well. The women's volleyball team ends their trip up to Holland, Michigan against Hope College at 1:30 p.m., and the football team will get things started at 1:30 p.m. on the home front when they host the Otterbein Cardinals. And for the nightcap of all the activities of the weekend, the men's soccer team will host Otterbein at 7 p.m. at the George Finney Stadium on Trestle Field. Thanks once again go out to all my guests here on the Swarm Podcast, Marco Stilliana, George Linberger, and Jim Hilvert of the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jacket football team. The BW Yellow Jackets, after a bye week, will be in action once again at 1:30 p.m. with the kickoff against the Otterbein Cardinals, who are coming in off of a tough loss to the Mount Union Purple Raiders. For everyone here at the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jacket Athletic Department, I'm Matt Florjancic saying thanks for listening to the Swarm Podcast. Now and always, go Jackets.